As a way to round out the summer, we've gotten some new episodes of Pokémon Concierge, and I am so happy. This was a stop-motion series that came out on Netflix about 2 years ago almost at this point, though it did kind of feel like they were really itching to do more, and thankfully we got the confirmation they were working on some new episodes. This is not being counted as a season 2, but rather the second part of the series as a whole, I guess. So we got like 4 15-minute episodes back then, and now we've got 4 brand new 15-minute episodes. Do they hold up, and is it still good? Well, let's go ahead and find out. So the first episode of the second part, but I guess I'll go ahead and call it episode 5, follows Haru as she's now a lot more comfortable in her job as a Pokemon concierge alongside Psyduck. A Shinx and a Luxray arrive on the resort, so they'll be the new Pokemon staying here for the moment, but it turns out that Haru is actually going to have to handle basically everything by herself, as Tyler has to leave the island to stock up on supplies, and Miss Watanabe and Alyssa are out. And yeah, there is still like the front desk and some of the maintenance people, but when it comes to taking care of the Pokemon, it's all going to land on Haru. But ooh boy, what a great way to start things off. She was already so happy and so comfortable in her job, and now it turns out that she's going to have to do a lot more that she wasn't exactly ready to do. But as we know, she's someone who steps up to the plate, and even though she gets a bit overwhelmed, she'll always find a way to overcome it. So yeah, I would say a majority of this episode has to do with a lot of like little shenanigans that are going on, like, you know, different Pokemon interacting in ways that they shouldn't necessarily, or at least just kind of causing trouble just by being Pokemon, and again, only having the one human around to really corral them all. It really is going to take a lot of effort, but she does come to the solution that she can rely on the Pokemon as well. Normally she was really just there to serve all the Pokemon and make sure they're happy, but they can all come together and have a fun time helping to take care of each other, like having Luxray assist in the cooking, and especially having the Diglett help out in the vegetable garden, which were a nuisance at first. Though it's not all smooth sailing from here as the power goes out and Haru has to try and find a way to solve this, getting assistance from some of the other employees that again we don't really hear a whole lot from normally, so they help out with the guest and Haru goes to the generator since they're already outside. And yeah man, I gotta say I was starting to feel happy at first, but then now seeing like there's another big problem that, you know, isn't really just a matter of like, ooh, I don't know what to do. It's like actually actively affecting everybody, the humans and the Pokemon that are staying here. But even seeing that temporary solutions don't really work and the Pokemon aren't necessarily able to help out in this specifically, I was really relating to a lot of the stress that she was starting to feel. Because like I said, yeah, after the end of the first part, it was like, ooh, you know, it's gonna be all like sunshine and rainbows now, but not necessarily. The solution that they come to is to just embrace the fact that they don't have any power and just have a fun little time outside with all the bioluminescent Pokemon. And this is really where Shinx and Luxray come into play. I really like the detail that they were glowing the whole time, and you know, it's something that I picked up on at first, and it's like, okay, at least they're there. But seeing them outside in the patio alongside things like Shiinotic and even Charmander, it really made it all come together, and honestly it looked really nice. I would love to be there. So thankfully she's able to hold out for the first day, and the next morning everybody comes back, and so we can really properly start the next batch of episodes. Well, okay, we did already start this time, but now that the full cast is here, we can kind of get a good reset. Like I said, this isn't really a second season, but I think that this was a good first episode of this batch, and maybe like the middle point of a season, I guess you could count it as that, but it really does work as a good reset to jump back into the series, while also being a good challenge for Haru to overcome after she's gotten comfortable from the first 4 episodes. So yeah, this is a really fun one, and I'm looking forward to the next. So episode 6 begins out on the water as we're introduced to a Celio, one of a new guest Pokemon that is staying on the island. I do like that as we see Tyler trying to recapture the runaway Celio, Miss Watanabe brings up something about them being short-staffed, which, you know, having seen all the episodes really comes into play later. So we get back to Tyler, who's trying to get Celio to stop, and of course he is followed by his elemental monkeys, which I just love them. I love Tyler, I love the monkeys, they're fun in the series. But Celio is refusing to stop, that is until Joe Biden? This is Dan, who is actually Tyler's uncle, and he's a pretty interesting character. For one thing, he's stated as being someone who's really tough and loud when he was younger, but now yeah, he's definitely just an old man on the island enjoying his time, and he is Celio's trainer. He goes on about how he was a fisherman and he first met a Spheal that evolved into the Celio, but now in his old age and as Spheal has evolved into Celio, he's sort of run into the problem that it's really hard to take care of Celio living in the city, because sure, he can take it out to the park every once in a while outside of its Pokeball, but living in an apartment doesn't really help out with such a big Pokemon, especially because it has the potential to evolve once again. So that is why he's staying here on the island for a bit. And while it seems like we're gonna have a fun time while he's here as a guest, the next morning he actually disappears and nobody knows where to find him, leaving Celio all by itself. And it turns out that actually he's boarded the boat and decided to go home. Man, such a crazy moment. I was like, whoa, they're actually gonna do this? He's actually gonna abandon Celio? I mean, I know he cares about Celio, and once they stop the boat and get him back on land and actually talk to him, we find out, yes, that is the case, he really does care about Celio, but he figured that the best thing for Celio would be to leave it on the island. So while he didn't really intend it as being abandoning his Pokemon, that is legitimately what he did. So after being confronted about it, he's extremely apologetic, and I do do like that they don't keep him as like, somebody who's rude or old and in the wrong, but just somebody who really doesn't know exactly what he should do, and has the best interest of his Pokemon in mind. And so the conclusion is reached that Celio can stay on the island as long as Dan stays as well, so he actually ends up staying as an employee and a permanent character, at least going forward. And I really like that resolution. I like that, he's apologetic and he's called out for what he did as being wrong, though again it was something understandable. And the solution that they come to allows the dynamic in the series to change for the better going forward. So I think this is a really fun episode. I think it was, pretty like decently heavy and emotional at some point, with all the drama going on, and it's something that I feel like we don't see all too much in the anime, or we've probably seen it a few times here and there, but it was also a great idea for Dan to have a pre-established relationship with Tyler, and for him to have preconceived notions about how his uncle would be, somebody that he looked up to. And that's what I think makes the confrontation and character development work so much better. So yeah, this episode might have been my favorite. So episode 7 continues as Dan is now a new employee at the resort, and Haru has been tasked with training him and making sure he's caught up to speed. And he does adapt pretty quickly to small scenarios like riding a scooter, and he actually performs really well in some other areas. For one thing, being a fisherman, he's able to tell that the stream the Magikarp in isn't the best for them and decides to move him to a place that would be warmer. So really the focus is shifted back to Haru for this, because she's not necessarily sure that she's the best person to train Dan. She figured out that she's great with Pokemon and is really good at setting their needs above hers, but when it comes to another person, especially somebody older than her, and now somebody who seemingly she doesn't really have anything to teach, is another way of continuing to give her some obstacles to overcome and building up some of her self-doubt in a different area. But while he continues to follow her around throughout the day, he's able to witness firsthand all the ways in which she's able to care for the Pokemon that she already knows. The elemental monkeys at one point, and especially Psyduck, her cute little bunny. So just when she's about to tell Miss Watanabe that she's not up to the task, Dan was giving her some high praise, saying that she's doing an excellent job. So it is kind of nice to have that extra little validation there. Sometimes we worry for nothing, and sometimes the upside with humans is that they can actually tell you what they're feeling and how they're feeling. So I think that this is also a really nice episode to continue establishing Dan as a character, and establishing how Haru reacts to somebody new in the workplace. Though while he seems like a big softie just wanting to take cute pictures of his Celio, a fight breaks out between two Metagross that could get really dangerous, which Dan is able to stop with the help of Celio getting physically in the way, and of course he himself letting out a big yell to stop fighting, which we had heard Tyler build up. So his experience is really coming in, especially as somebody who does something that everybody else couldn't, in the way that they all contribute their own special talents. Though maybe Dan was a bit too loud because it actually scared some of the little Pokemon. So they end off the episode with a nice chill time as they're bouncing balls around, which is a Celio thing. But Dan is helping all the other Pokemon have fun as well. So yeah, this is a really fun episode. I think that, this one following the last one, I think those were really good, a really strong middle. So yeah, they introduced a brand new permanent character really well. And now comes episode 8, the final one for now. We start off on a very stormy day as everybody is trying to get all the Pokemon inside, and Haru has to stop and save an Eevee who's stranded across a broken bridge. I really do like the look of the scene because it is very different from the typical tropical sunny that we see and is a lot more of a tropical storm, but everything still just looks so beautiful. That's something that I already discussed like in the first review of this and goes without saying for this one. But in her time of need, she's rescued by an Arcanine that is actually owned by this guy, who turns out to be her ex-boyfriend. What? So that is the premise of this episode. Kent has gotten a promotion and so he's celebrating by staying at the resort. And Haru has some really interesting awkward interactions with him. Sure, they are really happy to see each other and that each other are doing well, but there is this really weird air of sort of romantic tension, not necessarily. Like I don't think they're gonna get back together, but the fact that they were together before is lingering over everything, as we see Psyduck a little jealous that he's getting all the attention from Haru. And I love too that all the other employees are just watching the whole time like, ooh, this is pretty juicy, until Miss Watanabe tells them to split up. But that is basically how the episode goes. Haru makes it her personal mission to make sure that Kent and Arcanine have a good time. And I think it is really good, especially because this is somebody who knew Haru from before she started her job here. So she's had the entire series so far to grow and change. So now having Kent see just how much that she has changed and grown in that time also serves as a way to kind of give Haru some, not necessarily closure or not necessarily prove how much she's grown, but it really is more of a way of measuring it. We see the final realization and culmination of how she's able to see what Pokemon need in the moment with Arcanine having some dry paws, and so she helps out. And then when they're just having fun in a big tube slide and Arcanine gets stuck inside it, she's the one who's able to get it unstuck. Again, right in front of Kent, who sees this all happen. And of course, especially now, Haru is able to tell him that yeah, she just had to let go and had to get away from things, and just now she's able to enjoy herself a lot more. It's a really cute moment, really cute episode. And I think it really was a perfect way to kind of end things off. It had a different feeling from the other episodes, but this one does feel much more like a season finale, especially because we get a little bit more of an epilogue seeing everybody else working on the island. Haru and Psyduck are left there to enjoy yet another day together. with the final revelation, I guess you would call it, even though we all sort of knew this already, that Haru sees the resort as her home. So yeah, that was a really fun one. Overall, the second batch of episodes I think is exactly what we needed. As I mentioned, the first 4 episodes were really great and fun, and did a great job at setting things up. It really didn't feel all that conclusive. Now with these other 4 episodes, it does feel a lot more so. Yeah, they are only 8 episodes and each about 15 minutes long, but if you take the time to sit down and watch them all together, then it flows a lot better as a series and actually is a pretty decent amount of time. That's like what, a whole 2 hours worth of scripted Pokemon content? I think there might have been a lot more individual moments of the first batch that I enjoyed more, but overall having these last 4 episodes makes the first 4 even more enjoyable, I feel. And of course, obviously, just the look of the series, it's one of the best looking one because you can just see all the dedication put into every single frame, and the overall vibe and feeling of the island is just absolutely perfect. I would describe the first 4 episodes as taking in a deep breath and then these ones now letting it out, because it really does keep the general themes and thesis going of just chill out, calm down, enjoy yourself, which is something that I think we all could really use now and then. So let me know what you think in the comments about Pokemon Concierge, the first few episodes, the second batch, the whole thing as a series, and if you would like to see even more episodes, I know I definitely would love to. Anyway, I should really get back to putting into practice everything I learned from the series. Thank you to every channel member for your continued support, including the Great Gators, Alex with Shiny Hunts, Justin Dows, Cosmo Zero, Tyler Hopper, Koi13, Cemetery Hill, Cheez-It62, GatorKid509, TF, Mathaclock947, Taijirai, Justin R, Phantom, and Quago. If you would like to support, see your name here, get access to emotes, for comments, live streams, sometimes early videos, and our members podcast, you can become a channel member today. You can also follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky as well for more memes. Anyway, this is GatorX, and I will catch you all later.
You can discover new Pokémon and explore a world beyond your own in Pokémon Sun and Pokémon Moon on Nintendo 3DS. Games rated everyone.